The command deck of Prison Facility 7 had descended into complete chaos. Sparks flew from overloaded systems as human boarding parties systematically dismantled Zephyrian defenses with surgical precision. Commander Vex watched in horror as his supposedly impregnable fortress fell apart around him. "How is this possible?" he demanded as another explosion rocked the station. "Our intelligence report said humans barely had spaceflight capability." His tactical officer's voice was shaking. "Commander, their technology is at least 50 years ahead of ours. Their weapons are cutting through our armor like it doesn't exist. And their soldiers." He paused, reviewing the security feeds. "They're moving through the station like they've trained here for months." On the monitors, human soldiers in advanced armor moved with mechanical precision through the prison corridors. They disabled security systems, freed prisoners, and neutralized guards without wasting a single motion. It was clear they had studied every detail of Zephyrian military tactics and found countermeasures for all of them. "Sir," another officer reported, "we're receiving surrender demands from the lead human vessel. They're threatening to destroy our life support systems if we don't comply within the next 10 minutes. Vex's scales rippled with frustrated rage. "Contact High Command. Tell them we need immediate reinforcement. A full battle fleet." "I tried, sir. They're jamming our communications. We can't reach anyone outside the facility." Meanwhile, Sarah walked calmly through the liberated sections of the prison with Valthex beside her. The massive Dragon Lord had to duck to fit through the corridors, but he seemed genuinely curious about human military efficiency. "Your warrior show. Remarkable coordination," he observed as they passed another squad of soldiers helping rescued prisoners. "Years of practice," Sarah replied. "Humans have been fighting each other for so long that we've gotten very good at it. When we finally started working together, we applied all those lessons to external threats." They reached what had been the maximum security section. Sarah was interested to see how the other prisoners reacted to Valthex. Instead of cowering in terror, most of them seemed relieved to see him free. Apparently, word had spread about the Dragon Lord's true nature. "Ambassador Chun," Sergeant Rodriguez approached with a datapad. "We've identified 847 prisoners from 23 different species. Most appear to be political dissidents, territorial dispute survivors, and individuals who oppose Zephyrian expansion." Sarah nodded grimly. "Just as we suspected. This isn't a prison, it's a genocide facility." She turned to Valthex. "Were there others from Crix here?" The Dragon Lord's expression grew heavy with old pain. "3 others when I arrived. They did not survive the interrogations." "I'm sorry," Sarah said sincerely. Then her expression hardened. "Rodriguez, make sure our intelligence teams document everything. I want complete records of what the Zephyrians have been doing here." "Already in progress, ma'am. The evidence is ... extensive." As they continued through the facility, Sarah noticed that Valthex was studying the human soldiers with intense interest. Their equipment, their tactics, their casual competence in what should have been a dangerous boarding operation. "You wish to ask something," she said. "Your species? How long have you possessed such capabilities?" Sarah considered how to answer that question. "It depends on how you measure it. Humans have been warriors for their entire evolutionary history, but our spacefaring military technology is relatively recent. Maybe 50 years of serious development." "50 years," Valthex repeated slowly. "In 50 years you progressed from primitive spaceflight to this?" "Humans learn very quickly when properly motivated, and the Zephyrians provided excellent motivation when they started expanding into systems we were interested in." They reached a large observation deck that provided a view of the space battle raging outside. Through the reinforced windows, Valthex could see the human fleet in action for the first time. What he witnessed made him understand why the prison facility's defenses had crumbled. So quickly, the human ships moved like predators, using speed and precision to systematically destroy Zephyrian weapons emplacements. Their technology was clearly superior, but more than that, their tactics showed a deep understanding of their enemies' weaknesses. "You studied them," Valthex realized. "For years you studied Zephyrian military doctrine?" Every engagement, every conquest, every tactical decision, Sarah confirmed. We've been monitoring their expansion for decades, learning their patterns and preferences. By the time they encountered human diplomatic missions, we knew more about their capabilities than they knew themselves. A new voice cut through the observation deck's intercom system. It was Admiral Harrison, commander of the human fleet. Attention all Zephyrian personnel. Your facility's defenses have been neutralized. Your communications are blocked. Your reinforcements cannot reach you. You have two choices: surrender and face trial for your crimes, or resist and be destroyed. You have 5 minutes to decide. Through the windows, they could see that the prison station's weapon systems had indeed been systematically eliminated. The human fleet maintained perfect formation around the facility, ready to deliver devastating firepower if necessary. Sarah activated her personal communicator. Admiral Harrison, this is Ambassador Chun. I'm in the observation deck with rescued prisoners. What's our status? Good to hear your voice, Ambassador. We've secured 78% of the facility. Prisoner extraction is proceeding smoothly. The Zephyrian commander is still refusing to surrender, but his tactical options are extremely limited. Any sign of Zephyrian reinforcements? Negative. We've been monitoring hyperspace routes for the past week. No large military formations anywhere in this sector. It appears they kept this facility secret even from their own fleet commanders. Valthex listened to this exchange with growing amazement. The humans hadn't just planned a rescue operation. They'd orchestrated a complete intelligence-gathering mission that had been running for weeks. The diplomatic mission, he said. It was never the primary objective. Sarah nodded. We needed someone inside Zephyrian space to confirm the location of their secret facilities and document their crimes against galactic law. My capture was always a possibility we prepared for. And if they had simply negotiated normally, then we would have achieved our goals through diplomacy instead of military action. Either way, we got what we came for. The intercom crackled again as Commander Vex's voice filled the observation deck. Human fleet. This is Commander Vex. I demand to speak with your leader. Admiral Harrison's response was coldly professional. This is Admiral Harrison. Are you ready to surrender, Commander? I want to negotiate terms. The terms are simple. Complete surrender and cooperation with war crimes investigations. In exchange, your personnel will be treated according to galactic conventions and given fair trials. There was a long pause. Then Vex's voice returned, filled with desperate bravado. You cannot threaten the Zephyrian Empire. Our fleets will hunt you across the galaxy. Sarah activated her communicator. Admiral, this is Chun. I think the commander needs some perspective on his situation. Understood, Ambassador. Commander Vex, I want you to review the data package we're transmitting to your systems now. On the observation deck's displays, detailed star charts began appearing. They showed human fleet positions throughout a vast region of space, highlighting bases, patrol routes, and defensive installations that the Zephyrians had never suspected existed. Valthex studied the displays with the eye of someone who understood military logistics. Your species, you have been preparing for war. We've been preparing to defend ourselves, Sarah corrected, and to defend our allies when necessary. The galaxy is a dangerous place, and humans prefer to be ready for anything. The scale of human military presence shown in the charts was staggering. Dozens of star systems, hundreds of ships, and what appeared to be a complete intelligence network spanning multiple sectors of the galaxy. Commander Vex's voice returned over the intercom. Much quieter now. This is impossible. Our scouts would have detected such buildup. Your scouts saw what we wanted them to see, Admiral Harrison replied. Human stealth technology is quite advanced. We've been watching your activities for years without your knowledge. Sarah decided it was time to deliver the final revelation. Commander, there's something else you should know. This rescue operation isn't being conducted by Earth's primary military forces. This is just one small task force from our Exploration and Diplomatic Protection Division. What does that mean? It means the ships and soldiers that captured your impregnable Facility represent about 0.2% of human military capabilities. Our actual war fleets are somewhat larger. The silence from the command deck was deafening. Through the observation windows, Valthex could see Zephyrian soldiers on the outer hull of the facility laying down their weapons and activating emergency beacons to signal surrender. Your commander appears to be reconsidering his options, Valthex observed. Minutes later, the facility's surrender alarm began sounding. Emergency lights switched to amber, indicating the end of hostilities. Over the intercom system, Commander Vex's voice announced the facility's capitulation to all personnel. All Zephyrian forces, this is Commander Vex. I am ordering a complete surrender. Lay down your weapons and report to. 3 days had passed since Sarah was thrown into the cell, and Commander Vex was beginning to question everything he thought he knew about humans. The viewing screen showed the impossible sight of his most dangerous prisoner engaged in what appeared to be casual conversation with the creature that had once torn apart an entire squad of elite soldiers. Commander, his aide whispered nervously, perhaps we should report this to High Command. The behavior is ... precedented. Vex's claws scraped against the control panel as he watched the scene unfold. The human female was actually demonstrating something to the dragon, moving her hands in complex patterns while the massive beast watched with obvious fascination. Not yet, Vex decided. I want to understand what's happening before we involve higher authorities. Continue monitoring all communications and energy readings from the cell. Inside the prison, Sarah was teaching Valthex about human martial arts forms. It seemed like an absurd thing to do while trapped with a 30-foot dragon, but she had learned that building trust often required sharing knowledge. The movements help focus mental energy, she explained, flowing smoothly from one position to another. Physical discipline creates mental clarity. Valthex observed every detail with intense concentration. Your species practices warrior arts? Among other things. Sarah completed the form and settled back onto the floor. Though most humans would tell you we're a peaceful species that prefers diplomacy to violence. But this is not truth? Sarah's expression grew thoughtful. It's not the whole truth. Humans are very good at telling people what they want to hear, especially when it gives us strategic advantages. The Dragon Lord's eyes narrowed with something like approval. Deception as survival strategy, when necessary. Sarah stretched, working out the stiffness from sleeping on a metal floor. The Zephyrians wanted to believe humans were weak because it made us easier to dismiss. So we let them believe it. Valthex shifted his massive bulk, scales rustling like armor plates. Yet you are here. Their prisoner, am I? Sarah asked quietly. Before Valthex could respond to this cryptic comment, the cell's intercom system crackled to life. Commander Vex's voice echoed off the metal walls. Human, we know you can hear us. Explain how you have survived 3 days in that cell. Sarah looked up at the speaker with mild annoyance. I asked Valthex nicely not to eat me. Turns out dragons appreciate good manners. There was a long pause. Then Vex's voice returned, colder and more suspicious. The creature's name is not Valthex. It is designated Prisoner X7. His name, Sarah corrected firmly, is Valthex, last Dragon Lord of Crix. Show some respect when you speak of him. Another pause, this one even longer. Sarah could imagine the confusion and growing alarm among the guards. Good. Confused enemies made mistakes. The dragon is a mindless killing machine, Vex insisted. It cannot be reasoned with. Valthex raised his massive head toward the speaker and spoke in his rumbling voice. I understand every word you say, Scaled One, and I remember every friend you murdered. The intercom went silent. Sarah nodded with satisfaction. I think we got their attention. They will increase. Security measures, Valthex observed. Probably, but that might actually work in our favor. Sarah began pacing the cell, her mind clearly working through various scenarios. Tell me, how long have you been imprisoned here? 2 cycles of seasons, nearly 800 of your days. And in that time, how many supply ships have docked with this facility? Valthex considered the question. Weekly supply runs? Emergency deliveries when prisoners are transferred. Why do you ask? Sarah smiled, and there was something predatory in the expression. Because I've been tracking shipping schedules since I arrived. And according to my calculations, we should be getting some interesting visitors very soon. Outside the cell, Vex was frantically trying to make sense of the situation. His security chief, a massive Zephyrian named Orcs, studied the monitoring data with growing concern. The energy readings are anomalous, Orcs reported. The human's biological signatures don't match any known species profiles in our database. Explain. Her neural activity is unlike anything we've recorded. Most species show massive spikes of fear and stress when exposed to a Dragon Lord's psychic presence. This human shows almost nothing. As if she's naturally immune? Vex felt a chill run down his scaled spine. What about her physical capabilities? That's even stranger. Her muscle density is far higher than our initial scans indicated. Her bone structure is reinforced in ways that suggest adaptation for high-gravity environments and extreme physical stress. And her metabolic efficiency. Quarks paused. Commander, this being could survive in conditions that would kill most species. Are you suggesting the humans lied about their physical capabilities? I'm suggesting we may have seriously underestimated them. Vex stared at the monitoring screens. The human was now examining the cell's construction with obvious expertise, running her hands along the walls and studying the containment systems. She moved with the confidence of someone who understood exactly what she was looking at. Get me everything we have on human military capabilities, Vex ordered. And contact the intelligence division. I want to know if there have been any reports of unusual human activity in this sector. Meanwhile, Sarah was conducting her own intelligence-gathering operation. The cell might be designed to hold a dragon, but she had spotted at least 6 different ways to exploit its construction flaws. The Zephyrians had built the containment system to keep something in, not to keep trained soldiers out. The structural weak points are here, and here, she explained to Valthex, pointing to spots where the wall sections joined. The energy conduits run along this path. If someone were to overload the primary systems, the barriers would fail, Valthex finished. His burning eyes followed her gestures with growing interest. You have studied such systems before? Human diplomats receive extensive training in security assessment, Sarah said carefully. We need to understand how to protect our own facilities after all. Valthex made a sound that might have been laughter. Your species practices much deception. We prefer to think of it as being thoroughly prepared. Sarah sat down next to the dragon's massive head, close enough to feel the heat radiating from his scales. The question is, what do you want to do about our situation? You speak as if escape is possible. Most things are possible if you have the right resources and timing. Sarah's eyes gleamed in the dim light. And I happen to have both. Before Valthex could ask what she meant, a new alarm began sounding throughout the prison facility. The lights shifted to emergency red and automated voices announced a security alert. Attention all personnel. Unknown vessels approaching the facility. All guards report to battle stations. This is not a drill. Sarah checked the chronometer on her wrist and nodded with satisfaction. Right on schedule. Valthex stared at her with new understanding. The supply ships you mentioned ... aren't supply ships? Sarah stood and moved to the center of the cell. Commander Vex? I assume you're still listening. You might want to check your sensor readings very carefully. On the command deck, chaos was erupting. Sensor technicians frantically tried to identify the approaching contacts while defense systems powered up automatically. 6 vessels, unknown configuration, reported the tactical officer. They're not responding to our communications. Size and armament? Vex demanded. That's difficult to determine. They're using some kind of sensor masking technology. But they're big? Bigger than our usual supply frigates? Vex felt his blood turn to ice as understanding dawned. How did they find this facility? It's supposed to be hidden in deep space. The answer came from an unexpected source. The cell's intercom activated, and Sarah's calm voice filled the command deck. Tracking beacon in my diplomatic credentials. We've been monitoring this location since you brought me here 3 days ago? Impossible. Vex snarled. We scan you for all known tracking devices. You scan for all known Zephyrian tracking devices, Sarah corrected. Human technology works on different principles. We had to develop some very creative solutions during our various wars. The tactical display showed the approaching vessels taking up attack formations around the prison facility. Whatever they were, they moved with military precision and clearly hostile intent. This is Commander Vex of Imperial Prison Facility 7, he broadcast on all frequencies. You are in violation of Zephyrian sovereign space. Withdraw immediately or face destruction. The response came in perfect Zephyrian, but the voice was unmistakably human. This is Admiral Harrison of the Terran Defense Fleet. You are harboring a kidnapped Earth diplomat. Surrender immediately or we will take her by force. Vex's claws scraped against his command chair. Terran Defense Fleet? I've never heard of any such organization. Most species haven't. Sarah's voice came through the intercom again. We don't advertise our military capabilities unless absolutely necessary. It tends to make negotiations more complicated. On the sensor display, the unknown vessels were deploying what looked like boarding pods and attack craft. The prison's automated defenses began charging their weapons, but Vex could see they were severely outmatched. How many ships do you have? He asked, though he dreaded the answer. In this sector? Just the 6 you can see. Ambassador Sarah Chun stood perfectly still as the massive energy shackles clicked shut around her wrists. The Zephyrian guards towered over her, their scaled blue skin gleaming under the harsh prison lights. Each one stood nearly 8 feet tall, with razor-sharp claws and teeth that could tear through steel. Yet Sarah's expression remained calm, almost bored. You have violated the sacred laws of the Galactic Council, hissed Commander Vex, his forked tongue flicking out as he spoke. Interfering with our expansion into the Outer Rim territories is punishable by death. Sarah tilted her head slightly. I was conducting diplomatic negotiations as authorized by Earth's government. Nothing I did violated any treaty. Lies! Vex slammed his clawed fist against the wall. Your species thinks they can manipulate superior races with your pathetic words and false promises. You will learn the price of defying the Zephyrian Empire. The other guards chuckled, a sound like grinding metal. Sarah had heard worse threats from corporate board meetings back on Earth. These aliens clearly had no idea what they were dealing with. Since you are so fond of your diplomatic immunity, Vex continued, we will honor it. You will not be executed immediately. Instead, you will be placed in our most secure holding cell until your trial. Sarah raised an eyebrow. How generous of you. Oh, but there is one small detail. Vex's yellow eyes gleamed with malice. Your cellmate is rather unique. We call it the Devourer. It is the most dangerous predator in this sector of the galaxy. Nothing that enters its cell has ever survived more than minutes. The guards began marching Sarah through the prison complex. The facility was massive, carved deep into an asteroid that drifted in the empty space between star systems. Hundreds of cells lined the corridors, each containing prisoners from dozens of different species. Most cowered in the corners of their cells when they saw the guards approaching. The Devourer was captured on the death world of Crix 7, one of the guards explained with obvious pride. It took our entire fleet 6 months to subdue the creature. Even sedated, it killed 40 of our scientists during transport. Sarah nodded politely. Sounds lovely. They reached a section of the prison that was clearly different from the rest. The walls here were thicker, made of some kind of energy-resistant metal. Warning signs in multiple languages covered every surface. The air hummed with the power of containment fields and defensive systems. This is the maximum security wing, Vex announced. Only the most dangerous criminals and creatures are kept here. Your cell is at the very end. As they walked deeper into the wing, Sarah could hear various sounds echoing from the cells. Roars, screams, the scraping of claws against metal. But as they moved further, the sounds grew quieter. The prisoners in this section were either dead or had learned to stay very still. Finally, they stopped in front of a massive door marked with more warning symbols than Sarah could count. The energy readings on the nearby control panels showed containment fields operating at maximum power. "Here we are," Vex said with obvious satisfaction. "Cell block X7, home to the Devourer." Through the small viewing window, Sarah could see into the cell. It was enormous, at least 50 feet on each side, with walls that extended up into darkness. The floor was covered with what looked like ash and scattered bones. In the center of the space, a massive shape moved in the shadows. "The creature is nearly 30 feet long," another guard whispered. "It has natural armor that can deflect plasma weapons. Its teeth can bite through starship hull plating. And its intelligence. The thing is cunning beyond measure." Sarah studied the shape in the cell. Even in the dim light, she could see it was massive. Scales the color of deep space reflected what little illumination reached them. She caught a glimpse of eyes like burning stars watching the viewing window. "Any last words, human?" Vex asked Mockingly. Sarah turned to face him. For just a moment, something flickered in her dark eyes that made the commander take an involuntary step backward. But then her expression returned to its previous calm. "I hope your insurance covers the damages," she said simply. Vex frowned, confused by the strange comment. But he was too eager to watch the human die to think about it too carefully. He activated the door controls, and the massive barrier began to slide open with a grinding roar. "Farewell, Ambassador Chun," Vex called out as the guards shoved Sarah through the opening. "Try to last longer than the previous occupants. The creature enjoys its entertainment." The door slammed shut behind her with a sound like thunder. Sarah found herself standing in near complete darkness, surrounded by the scattered remains of previous prisoners. The air was thick and warm, carrying the scent of something ancient and wild dot from the shadows across. The cell came a low rumble that seemed to vibrate through the floor and walls. Sarah could feel eyes studying her, intelligent and calculating. She remained perfectly still, allowing her vision to adjust to the darkness. Slowly, the massive creature emerged from the shadows. It was even larger than the guards had described, with a serpentine body covered in midnight black scales that seemed to absorb light. Its head was the size of a small spacecraft, with jaws filled with teeth like crystal spears. Massive wings were folded against its back, and its claws scored deep gouges in the metal floor with each step, but it was the eyes that caught Sarah's attention. They glowed with an inner fire, but more than that, they held unmistakable intelligence. This was no mere beast. This was a being with thoughts, emotions, and probably a very good reason to hate everything connected to the Zephyrian Empire. The creature stopped about 20 feet away from Sarah and lowered its massive head to study her. Its nostrils flared as it caught her scent. Sarah could feel its breath, hot as a furnace, washing over her. "Well," Sarah said calmly, as if she were greeting a colleague in a conference room, "this is certainly an interesting situation." The creature's eyes widened slightly. It had clearly not expected its newest prey to speak so casually. Sarah took a careful step forward, her hands held openly at her sides. "I'm going to guess that you understand what I'm saying. The guards mentioned you were intelligent. My name is Sarah Chun. I'm a human from a planet called Earth." The creature tilted its head, studying her with obvious curiosity. It made a sound that was almost like a purr, but much deeper and more complex. Sarah got the distinct impression it was trying to communicate. "I don't suppose you have a name?" Sarah asked. "Or can you speak in any language I might understand?" For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the creature opened its massive jaws and spoke in a voice like controlled thunder. "I am ... Vex, last of the ... Dragon Lords of Krix." Sarah nodded respectfully. "It's an honor to meet you, Valvex. Though I have to say, the accommodations here leave something to be desired." Something that might have been amusement flickered in Valthex's burning eyes. You are not afraid, should I be? Valthex moved closer, his massive form gliding across the floor with surprising grace. All beings fear the devourer. They scream and beg and offer tribute. Sarah shrugged. I've seen worse things at diplomatic dinners on Earth. At least you're honest about being dangerous. The Dragon Lord stopped just a few feet away from Sarah. She had to tilt her head back to meet his gaze. This close, she could see battle scars crisscrossing his scales, evidence of the fight that had led to his capture. Why do you not flee? Valthex asked. Why do you not call for the guards? Sarah looked around the cell, taking in the scattered bones and ash. Well, for one thing, there's nowhere to run. And somehow I doubt the guards would help me even if I called them. You speak truth. Valthex settled himself on the floor. Though even lying down, he still towered over Sarah. The scaled ones threw you here. To die. That was probably the plan. Sarah found a relatively clean section of floor and sat down cross-legged, as if she were at a meditation retreat instead of trapped with a massive predator. They seem to think humans are weak and manipulative. I suppose they wanted to make an example of me. Are you weak? Sarah considered the question seriously. That depends on how you define weakness. I can't breathe fire or tear through starship armor with my claws. But I've survived worse things than angry aliens and uncomfortable accommodations. Valthex studied her for several long minutes. Sarah could practically see him thinking, weighing options and possibilities. Finally, he spoke again. The guard spoke truly. I am the last of my kind. The Zephyrians destroyed my world, enslaved my people, hunted us for sport. I'm sorry, Sarah said, and meant it. I know what it's like to lose everything to war. You have experienced loss? Sarah was quiet for a moment. My species has a talent for warfare. We've been fighting each other for thousands of years. I've seen cities burned, families destroyed, entire nations wiped from existence. The scars teach you things about strength and weakness that can't be learned any other way. Valthex moved slightly closer. Yet you became a diplomat? Because I learned that sometimes the strongest thing you can do is find another way. Fighting isn't always the answer, even when it feels like it should be. The great dragon considered this. The scaled ones? They know only conquest. They destroyed my world because they could. Sarah felt a familiar anger building in her chest, the same cold fury that had driven her through years of training and preparation. But she can't.